I'd like to take a leaflet. This charity's using unemployed as unpaid labour. I'd like to take a leaflet. Thank you. Today we're outside a North London Hospice shop, which is obviously a commendable charity and does very good work. However, they offer placements to the unemployed on a scheme called community work placements. This means that they're sent here for 30 hours a week for 6 months in order to get their benefits. We're opposed to that for several reasons. Number one, we always believe that charity shops are there for volunteers, that's part of the spirit of the community, and people in those shops give of their time freely, and that people aren't sent there against their will, forced to do it in any way.
It kind of undermines and devalues like the whole concept of what volunteering is, really. It becomes increasingly difficult for charities to be sure that the people who are volunteering for them are actually genuinely want to be there, aren't doing it because they're being coerced in some way, aren't scared that if they don't do it they'll be sanctioned. If the government wanted to make it possible for people to have work experience, then they can do that without threat of sanctions. They can do this without threat of leaving people to destitution. It's also the case that, a lot of places like this, the kind of work experience you get isn't particularly valuable. It may be like you're stacking shelves out the back, it may be that you're putting price stickers on something. It is, if you're doing that for 6 months and this in no way relates to like your existing skills, in no way relates to the jobs you've had in the past or the jobs you might want to have in the future, then like it's nugatory as work experience, it's pointless.
We're here to protest about the fact that North London Hospice is signed up to the Workfare programme, and that means that people who are on job seekers allowance will be forced to come to places like this just to earn their benefits, and if they don't come, then they'll get sanctioned, and that means that their ability to live and survive is put in jeopardy. Lots of other charities recently have pulled out because Boycott, Workfare and Keep Volunteering Voluntary have exposed them to their customers that they're using unpaid labour, and I think that we need to do the same to North London Hospice.
There are 2 shops in Wood Green High Road. We understand that altogether NLH, North London Hospice, have got about 6 shops in North London. So obviously they're raising a lot of money. And when we go, for instance, this particular shop here is a very small shop. It's about the size of a 1-bedroom flat. I came here during the week and found 2 or 3 North London Hospice staff and 4 people on community work placement. Basically there was no room to move in there. And the idea that any of these people were getting useful work experience is laughable. They were just stood around, there was nothing for them to do, and in essence what is really happening is that the organisation who's placed them, Urban Futures, they've taken a huge contract off the job centre, off the government, to place people in situations which can only be said to be less than helpful.
So people who are on Workfare aren't counted as unemployed for the purposes of the unemployment statistics. It's also the case that Workfare quite often has the effect of pushing people off claiming JSA when they're perfectly legitimately entitled to do it. Like, it's a way of bullying people off JSA, threatening them with sanctions or threatening them with Workfare, so these people just slip through the cracks, statistically speaking.
this is the problem, one of the problems that is emerging actually, that a lot of the people who are involved in offering placements, who are being spoken to by Urban Futures, the main organisation behind this, are instilling the idea that people who are unemployed are work shy, that in some way they're scroungers, and this is the sort of attitude we're coming across. Unfortunately, the idea is distilling down that people who are unemployed because of their own fault, when in reality there aren't the jobs to go round. And that is what needs to be addressed, rather than pinning the failure on the individual.
I'd rather stay because I'm a bit concerned that the manager thinks it's all right to tear up Know Your Rights.
Box you nicely. Box you nice and nicely. You've trapped all rights here.
What rights is that? Rights to keep people locked in rooms on threat of sanctions, doing job searches.
Take that up with the government.
We are taking it up with the government. We're also taking it up with you. We're taking it up with you.
Job.
We would like to see all the local charities signing the register, keep volunteering voluntary, of returning to their roots of how we understand charities running and volunteer charity shops running. And if they were all to register with that, it would actually challenge the whole work of Urban Futures, because suddenly Urban Futures would not be able to find those placements. If Urban Futures couldn't find those placements, it would undermine the whole community work placement scheme completely. And the job centre, the government, would have to think again about what job creation, about what preparing people for work really meant, and do something really meaningful for people who want to get into the workplace, rather than this scammy work scheme which is benefiting no one apart from Urban Futures.
You as an organisation have chosen to have a role in a scheme that is totally unjust, and that's why we're here holding you to account for it.
Don't take pictures of me, because I will take your phone off.
That's alright, it's just your chest, sir.
Okay, that's fine, but
I'm interested to record what you're saying.
Okay, I will take your phone off.
That's a threat of theft, and I really don't think you want
That's
to be
fair.
doing that.
You're breaking private property at the moment.
You're breaking the law by coming in and doing what you're doing here.
I haven't broken the law yet, but thank you.
You need to go.
No, we're happy to be here.
You need to go.
You're not allowed.
Urban Futures, the management were pretty hostile. They called the police pretty much immediately. 10 police turned up. They were quite physically and verbally aggressive, hassled us out of the shop, displayed quite a lot of contempt for the claimants that they were supposed to be helping. But it was a good day. It was a good day in there, I think.
I know it's part of the same thing.
You know there's meaningful activity then? So everyone in there, they find it so meaningful that they're there voluntary, or are they there because they might get their benefits sanctioned and be left destitute, facing homelessness, because when the job centre sanctions them, then their housing benefit gets cut off and they can't pay their rent. So yeah. Is that meaningful activity, that they're there voluntary? Or is that the reality, that people can't feed themselves, they can't heat their homes, they're under threat of eviction? You find that funny, you find people being evicted funny, you can laugh there.
Like, it's clearly wrong that we live in a country where people can be made artificially homeless, can be made artificially hungry, can be, left without the means to heat their homes or buy themselves food at the whim of the state. It's not that we're living in a time of that much scarcity. It's just that the state feels that it is justified to create these artificial situations in which life becomes unlivable for people who they think are at fault in some way because they haven't manifested the right kind of emotion, because they haven't done every single impossible task that they were set by the job centre, or just because someone took a dislike to them.
We've been losing money for years, mate. Don't you worry about it. You're planning to help it?
Well, you're more than welcome to do whatever you want with Urban Futures, but taking people off the roll, forcing them to work for their benefit,